How many of you know what the Big Three is? I'm not talking about the Big Three we learned in history class growing up, which is Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill. I'm talking about the Big Three, GM, Chrysler, and Ford. These are the only auto manufacturers owned by U.S. companies in our country. Now the question is, should the government bail them out or should the government let them fail? I'm here to tell you that the government should bail them out because the smaller companies that rely on auto manufacturers will be greatly affected. The impact on the economy will be too great, and it's very important that we have auto manufacturers owned by U.S. companies. According to a poll taken by CNN in December of 2008, only 36% of Americans supported that the government should bail out the auto companies. In the past year, the auto companies have suffered drastically. In manufacturing, wholesale trade, retail trade, and other services, over 500,000 jobs have been lost. Now, if the government does not bail out the auto companies, not only will smaller companies be affected, but there will be many jobs lost. According to the New York Times, the executives of the Big Three went to D.C. in September of 2008 to ask for financial support. They received money in December and January of that year, but when they went back in March, they were rejected by the current administration, which in result caused Chrysler to file bankruptcy in April and GM to file bankruptcy in June. One may argue that GM and Chrysler received money from the government but still filed for bankruptcy. Yes, GM and Chrysler filed for bankruptcy, but if they had not received any money from the government, they would have had to liquidate their assets and the companies would no longer exist. According to the New York Times, GM would have run out of money to operate in 2009 if it had not received any government support. Now, GM received aid from the government and still had to let go of 47,000 people. But if it had not received any aid at all, over 244,000 people would be jobless. 244,000 people? Now that's a lot for one company. If Chrysler collapsed too, over another 60,000 people would be lost, totaling over 304,000 people without jobs. If GM and Chrysler failed, there'd be less demands for parts of a car. Manufacturing companies that manufacture tires, windshield, wiper blades, car seats would be struggling to survive if they had not already shut down. If the government lets GM and Chrysler fail, not only will many be jobless, it will also have a great impact on the economy. According to the same poll taken by CNN in December, 53% of Americans believe that the government giving the auto companies money would not help steady the economy. If 304,000 people were jobless, our country would suffer from the trickle-down effect. These 304,000 people would not be able to pay their bills. They wouldn't be able to pay their mortgage, their insurance, food, electric, heating, water bill, and foreclosures could possibly happen. Now, these people would not be putting money into the economy. They wouldn't be buying clothes. They wouldn't be going to the movies. They wouldn't be eating at restaurants. They wouldn't be spending money on other appliances. And this, as a result, would affect other businesses, such as seeing a decrease in sales, which, as a result, could end up in more job loss. Now, if the government does not bail out the auto companies, abandoned towns could pop up. According to the City of Pontiac website, which is home to the Chrysler World Headquarters and General Motor Technology Center, 33,000 people are in the labor force. 21,000 people of the 33,000 work for GM. If GM fails, those 21,000 people are jobless. It's most likely that those 21,000 people are going to leave Pontiac and possibly abandon the town. Who wants to see abandoned towns pop up across America? What if it was your hometown? Now, according to Time magazine, the government knew it had to save GM and Chrysler in order to steady the economy. The government cannot let auto companies fail, not just because of the number of lost jobs, but the impact it could have on the economy would be too great, but also because the importance of the U.S. owned auto companies. According to the history textbooks, contributions were made by the auto companies during World War II. In January of 1942, the War Production Board shut down auto factories and converted them to wartime production factories. Ford Motor Company built a factory called Willow Run in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and was considered the largest factory space at that time. It has a 1-mile-long assembly line and was made to produce B-24 bombers and other planes. It is said that over 340 planes were produced a month, and a B-24 could be produced in under 59 minutes. Today, Willow Run is owned by GM, but is in the process of being shut down in GM's planned reinvention. If the government lets the auto companies collapse, there will be no factories to mass produce wartime equipment if we go to war again. Now, some may argue that we will not go to a world war again, but it would be unrealistic to think that we will never go to a world war again. We need U.S. auto manufacturers owned by U.S. companies because we don't want to have to rely on foreign manufacturers to produce our wartime equipment. We need factories to be prepared, and the only way we can be prepared is if the government ensures us that we will have auto manufacturers owned by U.S. companies that are ready to transform for wartime production like they did in World War II. Over the last few minutes, you've learned why the government should bail out the auto manufacturers. You've learned that the possibility of a 304,000 jobs lost, plus another 200,000 if Ford collapses, that's a total of 500,000 people without jobs. You've learned how this affects smaller companies, how those 300 with the possibility of 500,000 have an effect on the economy, and you've learned that the importance it is to have auto manufacturers owned by U.S. companies. If you would like to see the government bail out the auto manufacturers in the future, then take action. Contact your local senators and delegates and let your voice be heard. After all, they are representing you.